Welcome to Coffey Talk, real stories from real people. I'm your host, Kate Coffey-Bacon, and every Monday we'll sit down for honest conversations about successes, failures, and the lessons we learn from both. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk. Welcome back to Coffey Talk. Today's episode is about reinvention, about what it means to find your voice, to find your value, your next chapter, even when the world tells you that maybe your best years are behind you. My guest today knows the story all too well. After more than 3 decades in tech, Marie Wiese, founder of Marketing CoPilot, has proven that success in tech and in life has no age limit. Marie, welcome to Coffey Talk.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. It's a very personal one, so thanks for wanting to explore it.
I've been looking forward to this episode since I started Coffey Talk, right? So I'm now, 6-8 weeks in. So I've been looking forward to this one. So thank you for being here today and sharing your time with me. Let's jump right in. So you have said that tech has always been a young man's game, but it shouldn't be. That perspective has stayed with me, and I'm so curious to know more. So tell me about maybe a moment you realized it was time to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be succinct with my thoughts because I've got a million thoughts on this topic. I was growing up in the tech sector in the 90s and 2000s. And let's just put the stats on the table. Less than 23% of the tech sector today is women. So there's always been a disadvantage in tech for whatever reason that there weren't a lot of women wanting to create a career in tech. And I've interviewed tons of people on my podcast, Women Talk Tech, and everyone, when I asked them their origin story, slid into tech in a different way, came in through a different door, didn't leave high school or post-secondary school saying, I want a career in tech. And I certainly didn't either. I was a film and television major at university. And I started in PR and communications and those ways. And I slid into tech via the financial services industry. And when I was coming up in the ranks, there weren't a lot of women. And I saw a huge reward being given to young men in the tech sector who were aggressive and entrepreneurial. And it was all about chasing the dream in Silicon Valley and making millions and millions of dollars. And so, let's not forget, I was around during the first tech boom, and I was around during the first .com bust. And you were rewarded if you were young. There was an awards program in Canada called Fast 30 Under 30, and there was never women on those lists. And I kind of got annoyed by those lists because I thought, so you have to be under 30 to be fast. You have to be under 30 to be celebrated. And it annoyed me then, but I didn't have a voice then. Mm-hmm. I didn't really have a voice. I was just trying to make my way. I was trying to make my way as a career woman. I was trying to make my way as a wife and a mother. And, my generation of women were told you could have it all, and we went out to do it and didn't realize that doing that would kill us. I was really frustrated even with the magazine Fast Company. Do you remember the magazine Fast Company?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all it did was celebrate these young men who were up and coming entrepreneurs. And there was in my opinion, no real stories in that magazine. And not only were there not real stories, in my opinion, it wasn't celebrating the people who were slugging it out on the front lines in a whole different type of tech community. So that's where I got, that's where I saw it really firsthand. And it continued to be that way as I went on to chair a large tech association in the Greater Toronto area in the early 2010s. And, again, the only woman at the table. The only other woman at the table was the secretary for the organization who sat at the board meetings and took notes, took meeting minutes. When I think back about that, I should have been a lot more enraged than I was. But anyway, that's what I saw. It annoyed me because I wondered why there weren't more women in tech, why there weren't more women in tech banding together to kind of address this. And it took a while for me to find my voice, and it took a while for me to recognize that there was so many different roles in tech, and we didn't have to be the young upstarts looking to make $1 million overnight.
Yeah. So, man, Marie, I've done this whole 7, 8 weeks of other women in the dynamic space with us that are doing really big things. And so it's been so fun to celebrate each one of these stories. And you serve on the Women in Tech luncheon committee with me. And going through this process and hearing these stories of women celebrating what they saw, this might be a little bit contrary to what you may think, but celebrating what they saw and that they dug their heels in and did something, and then celebrating where we are now because of what was done. And so now I look forward and say, my daughter, our daughters, what is that story going to be in 15 years when
Mhm.
they have reached that,
Mhm.
when they're in their career and they're established. And, we're like, I'm in the business of breaking patterns. I'm in the business of showing a bigger, better, different way. And it sounds like you are too. How did you reinvent yourself? What decisions did you make where you were like, I'm going to be that trailblazer? What is a story where you knew you were doing that?
So, first of all, I think we're conditioned as human beings, and I think this is cultural. And when I say human beings, I think men and women, to think about the different eras of your life and think that once you hit a certain age, you're on the downswing, not the upswing anymore. We're very much conditioned as a society to think that way. And what it's taken me a long time to figure out, which kind of annoys me because it's so obvious, it's so blindingly obvious now, is that women mature later in life from a business perspective and on ideas and innovation. Like they might have had them all along, but they're busy battling other things like motherhood and caregiving and things that women, and just statistically, we are naturally wired to do. And 80% of primary caregivers for either young people, or older people, what are women. So this is ingrained data that we can't ignore. And so therefore, it only makes sense that women are going to hit their stride later in life, that they shouldn't be comparing themselves to men, that there's no way we should be saying, well, I'll do what a man can do by the time they're 40, because we can't. We're probably either we're mid child rearing or we're looking after older parents, or in my case, dealing with a sick spouse. And I mean, I did all those other things along the way, but then my life didn't really get turned upside down until my husband got really sick. And my husband got really sick just before the pandemic started. And that's when I was particularly frustrated by having chaired a local tech committee, sitting on the board of a large global tech organization, and just being frustrated by the representation that wasn't there and the conversations that weren't being had. And at that moment, I said, screw it. I can do this myself if I need to. I don't need to sit on the board of a tech association and spend my valuable volunteer time. I can go out and start interviewing women about their journey in tech and celebrating stories that matter. And that's when I started the podcast, Women Talk Tech, in 2017. And really, it started to take off in 2018. I chaired a number of panels across North America addressing the issues of gender parity in tech and how we could get there because of what diversity brings to the table when we have a diverse tech community. And I just kept interviewing more and more women because I wanted to share their stories and I wanted to profile them. So the pandemic hits. My husband is diagnosed with yet another round of cancer, is battling cancer treatment, is going through horrific things during the pandemic when it was very hard to access healthcare. And the thing that saved my mental health, was getting on the podcast and talking to these women. And it was so motivating to hear their stories and make connections with them and hear about some of the things they had struggled with in their careers. So, unfortunately, the pandemic was winding up, and unfortunately, my husband passed away in 2021. And that's when the full impact of everything hit me. And suddenly I had this clarity that I hadn't had about, I'm just I could see this as an opportunity to just get started. AI was starting to hit, and I was doing a lot of research in 2021 about what AI meant. And I realized, and that's when I had this epiphany, like these stories I've collected over the years and these women I've collected over the years. People say I collect women. Their stories were too important not to share. And that's when I started to realize this aging shouldn't be something that we're afraid of. Aging can provide incredible clarity and gravitas to what was probably already a good career for a lot of people. And that getting older could be the starting point, not the ending point. And so when I turned 60, and I knew I was about to turn 60, and I turned 60 this year, I thought, oh my God, I have the opportunity to do whatever I want. I have the opportunity to build something that I thought I wanted to do, and I could actually go do it. And I had all these stories behind me, and I had all these incredibly inspirational women who had done some very cool things. Everyone has a backstory. Everybody has tragedy and grief and loss and things that it's just a decision of when you come out, am I going for it or am I retreating? And that's when I realized I want to go for it. I want to do something really interesting at this point in time, which I believe is an unbelievable point in time in tech. It's an unbelievable point in time in the world. And I didn't want to be on the sidelines watching. Because the first time we went through the big tech ramp up, I was following somebody else's dream and helping it happen for someone else. And I said, I don't want to do it for someone else. I want to do it for myself.
You want to lead. Yeah. So you've said something a couple of times since we started chatting, and that is that, we kind of, as women, we kind of come into ourselves. I'm paraphrasing, but we kind of come into ourselves later in life. And I was having a conversation, another coffee talk, and in that conversation, I kind of said something that's even like sat with me, and I'll say it again. There comes a point with your experience, this list of things that you just said, through professional experience, through your own personal experience, loss, failing forward, rising up again, that experience becomes a foundation that we stand on. And things like imposter syndrome just starts melting away because you trust yourself, you trust the experience that you've had, you see the path through. And I think that is what separates women a little bit, is we need that confidence, that strong foundation of I've got this. And once I know I've got this, there is no stopping me because there's no doubt. And I'm not afraid to get older. I am looking forward to getting older because the best is yet to be. It hasn't even happened yet. So thank you for saying that. And thank you for reiterating that. That is a mentor moment for me that I'm going to write down. Thank you. That's really good. A lot of people might hit midlife and think that maybe it's too late to start something new. They're just getting back into work. Maybe they've stepped away from their career for a little while and now they're coming back into it. What do you think might be a myth about reinvention? And what would you say to somebody that might be in the middle of that right now, of reinventing themselves?
I've been reading a lot lately about consciousness and our brain, and I'm fascinated by the way human beings think. But the most important thing is to let go of what we used to do or what we thought was the way to do something. You got to let go of it. And a very wise woman said to me, if you did it last year, it's already been done. Don't do it again right now. Think of the next thing that needs to be done. And oftentimes when we think, oh, I have to do something new or I have to start over, we're afraid, right? As human beings, we're fearful. We're fearful of change. We're fearful of failing. We're fearful of all the things that have been ingrained into us as we've been raised and as children and taught. And you have to achieve. Failure's not an option. There's all these things that we probably hold on to as adults. So the thing that you have to do is just let go of all the past conceptions of the way something should be done or the way you used to do it, or, well, I don't want to do that because it's been done and they failed, or, oh, I'll never be able to do that. It'll be too hard to start my own business or launch this thing or do whatever. And so it's easy to sit back and let our own thoughts affect our next steps or where we want to go. So I think the first thing we have to do is let go of I want to say let go of the past, but I think that's really what we're trying to let go of is our previous misconceptions about things. And then the next thing is just to visualize what it is you want and what it looks like. And visualize that and great business coach I had one time said, draw a picture of it and put it on your desk and look at it every day and visualize what it is you want to build or what you want to do. And even if it seems impossible, even if it's something crazy like, I want to star in a sitcom. And that's not what you've done your whole life. Just take a first little step, visualize it, and take that first little step that might get you there. So maybe you're not going to become a sitcom star overnight, but maybe you put your hand up to be on someone's podcast and you're remarkably funny and likable, and you realize that maybe you could do interviews as a first step in all of this. So I'm just giving that kind of an example, but I think that first of all, we don't visualize it. And then secondly, it seems so overwhelming. I'm sure you've heard the quote, eat the elephant. You don't have to eat the elephant. You just have to take one tiny little step. So, I think about that in terms of when I was doing the Women Talk Tech podcast and I had all these great stories and I wanted to write a book. And I just was so excited about sharing these stories and wanted to elevate this. And so it wasn't coming together and it wasn't coming together and it wasn't coming together. And then all of a sudden it was. These little moments where it just kept at it, kept at it, kept at it. And then suddenly it was. And we're about to publish the book in January. And I also believe things happen for a reason, because had we tried to do it sooner, it wouldn't have been the right moment. The book's called You're on Mute, and everybody can relate to that now, having come through the pandemic and on Zoom, everybody became a digital native overnight. Everybody's on a Teams call, a Zoom call, whatever. And so everybody can relate to, oh, I can't hear you, you're on mute. So it wouldn't have come together the way it should. So again, take the little moments as they come. And then all of a sudden you'll realize that they're starting to build towards something. They're starting to add up to something.
I obviously am enamored with people and their stories. That's why I started Coffey Talk, because people's stories become guiding lights for me. They help me, and I've been a collector of stories for my entire career. For 25 years, I've been a collector of stories. And now I get the privilege of starting this Coffey Talk to get those stories that I continue to hear out. Other people need to hear them. I cannot wait to read your book. I cannot wait to hold it in my hands and read your book.
You and me both. I want to hold it. Yeah, I can't wait to hold it in my hands.
Yeah. Well, I want to switch gears, kind of. Let's talk about your experience in tech, especially as a woman in a male-dominated space. Every other word you say has a mentor moment in it. How has being a woman in a male-dominated space shaped the way you are mentoring others now?
That's a great question. I really thought a lot about mentorship. And over the years, I've participated in mentorship programs as a mentor. I have been mentored by people. And there was a woman in one job that I worked at in tech, and she was a business analyst, and she was new to the company, and somebody took me aside and said she would really like to be, kind of helped with some of the issues that she's dealing with. And I remember taking her aside and thinking I knew what mentorship was. And she and I are still connected to this day. She's become a business coach and a leadership coach. She left tech because it was not what she wanted to do anymore for a variety of reasons. And now she's incredibly courageous and, leading these teams and doing things. And we keep in touch. And I just joke saying, can you believe I thought I was a mentor at that point in my life? And she's like, oh no, you're being hard on yourself. You were very helpful to me. I said, well, I don't think I did enough. So over the years, I've honed my own version of what mentorship is. And I've tried really hard to bring young women into the tech sector. I always speak to women all the time about, have you considered a career in tech? It's a really interesting place to be. And I try to find ways to bring people in. So as I evolved in the tech sector, I realized that mentorship had to be different, that it had to evolve as well. And it's changed dramatically for me because it's not about volume, although I wish I could get more women into tech. It's about the quality of time that I can spend with someone. And now it's very much about spending a lot of time developing their ideas and listening to their ideas and hearing about how they want to move forward. And I was lucky enough to hire back in 2021 some young people right out of school. And I cannot believe what they've taught me in the last 4 years. And again, letting go of what you thought you knew or the way you thought it should be done. And I've been incredibly lucky to thinking I did, but thinking I was mentoring these young people and kind of going deep on the time I spent with them and what I got back from it and what I got out of it was tenfold.
Isn't that amazing how that happens? It's like the more that you think you know, the less you really do know. And the
That's exactly
faster
right.
that you open yourself up and have that growth mindset of, man, I remember when I was like 13 and like rebellious and, a handful, not much has changed. My dad had this big basketball and he like had me sat down and he's having this really intense conversation. And he's like, this is everything there is to know in the whole wide world. This is what you know. And he points at this one little speck. He was so right. I knew nothing and I still hold to that. Like the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know. I just don't know. And to have that growth mindset of, you have younger people that may be looking to you for guidance, for mentorship, but then you also realize you have a whole lot to learn from them because this generation, this younger generation has a whole new way of thinking about things. If you could leave the listeners with 3 truths about reinventing yourself, what would they be?
Well, number one, don't get stuck in the past. You have to give up the idea of who you were in order to become something new and reinvent yourself. You can't cling to your old glory. The second thing would be surround yourself with lots of different types of people. Don't go to the same people you've always gone to for advice or feedback or observation. Don't be afraid to open up the door to a new set of people who might not tell you what you want to hear, but they'll create observations that will be incredibly valuable as you're thinking of the next thing or trying to invent yourself. And I would say the third thing that served me well is constantly going out and meeting new people. I have very close, dear friends that I've spent years with. I have family that I'm very close to. But what brings a lot of joy in my life is meeting new people. And I always find when I'm in those situations of meeting new people, I get new ideas. You experience things and you share, and then you see what the feedback or the reaction to those things are. And it really does help you road test things. So I think those would be the 3 things I would tell.
Those are really great 3 things. I might put those on a t-shirt. Those are really great.
All right, I'll buy that t-shirt from you. If you put
Okay.
them on.
I'll buy your book. You buy my t-shirt. Marie, thank you for reminding us that we can start again. Thank you for reminding us to go out there and start new conversations. There's a whole world of people that we can learn from, and we just have to tap into it. They're every day. If today's conversation inspired you, the listener, share it with someone who may need to hear it. Maybe someone standing in the edge of their own reinvention. And remember, success isn't one big leap. It's quietly, consistently showing up, being open to learn something new. Until next time, this has been Coffey Talk. Thank you for joining us today on Coffey Talk. A special thanks to my guest for sharing their story and to you, the listener, for being a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday morning chat. Until next time, I'm Kate Coffey-Bacon, and this has been Coffey Talk.